Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Podtacular, the unofficial Halo Universe podcast. I'm your host, The Storm, and this week we are bioless, but we have quite a crew here for us tonight. We're going to still be talking the Halo 5 stuff. We have Hot Sauce and Godzilla Todd on here tonight. Welcome back, guys. And we also have our special guest with us, Unyshek. He's been on here once or twice already, and we figured we would have him back because he is pretty much a breakout god when it comes to Halo 5 Guardians. So that is going to be our topic of discussion tonight. I heard a few chuckles. Does that seem accurate?
I'm all right at Breakout. I don't know about Breakout God. I have my moments.
When you posted a video a few days ago with the perfect Breakout game, I think it's safe to say you're probably a breakout god.
He might know what he's doing.
Just maybe.
Yeah.
Just maybe. Him and his giant backpack. We're going to be... I think this is going to be the second to last show of us actually talking about Halo 5 Guardians. We've done the maps. We've done the weapons, the Spartan abilities. I think the only thing we really have left to talk about is the Forge stuff, which I think we're going to try to get a couple of Forge people on to talk about that, and then talk about the Spectator mode stuff. So we're almost done with our Halo 5 coverage, and then we're back to squeezing for news, and then starting to focus on highlighting some other communities around the larger Halo community, which will be good. But let's go ahead and I guess before we dive into this, there's a little bit of news to talk about that happened over this past weekend at the Gamers for Giving 2015 tournament. No surprise, I think, based off of the online tournaments from the last couple of weeks, that Evil Geniuses took first place prize, and they earned 3,000 Halo Championship points. So they're in the top seed rankings up there for being able to take home the championship, which is going to be in 2 weeks at PAX East, which I will be there, and a few other Halo community people will be there. Covering some of that news for you guys. So that should be really awesome, fun Halo to watch. I'm hoping that they have a better setup than they had for PAX Prime when you couldn't actually even watch everybody.
That was so lame.
Yeah.
Yeah, that tournament was just in one little conference room that no one could get into.
So you were actually back there. I don't mean to tangent too much from actually talking about Breakout, but you were on one of the teams, so you actually got to go back there and look at what was back there. Was there anyone really even allowed in there to spectate, or was it pretty much locked down?
No, there was no spectators until like the finals. They allowed like a few people in there, like friends, close friends. Like I think Riley got in there, Hastings, the editor, for a little towards the end there. They let people in for the finals, but otherwise, only if you were playing or warming up were you allowed to go into that conference room.
That, I don't know, to me that just kind of kills the whole environment of competitive Halo, because one of the, at least from an MLG perspective, when MLG was doing it back in the day, one of the things about watching competitive Halo is you had the crowd there to kind of build off of. And
yeah, it was different, but I feel like that stream was made more just for that event was more for the stream viewers, and it looked really good on the stream. You couldn't tell that it was just a small little conference room, and while you're there, it's like whatever. It's just a close quarter like LAN in a conference room is what it felt like, and that's kind of the competitive spirit. You just get a bunch of people there to scrim against each other almost, and then, like I said, just for that stream viewership, it looked good. And that's what they cared more about than the spectators, I felt like, for that event.
So I'm hoping that they have a lot better setup for PAX East. I'm hoping there is some kind of stage for people to actually come sit by and watch some Halo. I don't know how big of a crowd is going to be there, because I know PAX Prime tends to generate a little more of the Halo crowd. So we'll have to see. But I really do hope there's some kind of like seating stage area that we can actually watch the teams play, because that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I really hope that PAX East, they do it better than PAX Prime.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Quick question: did Team Goomba Stomp ever?
No,
just kind of fell
never
through.
happened.
Dang it! I would have rooted for you guys, but going back to the rankings, with the 3,000 point win from Gamers for Giving, Evil Geniuses is in the number 1 spot with 9,060 HCS points, and closely following them are Counter Logic Gaming, which actually managed to take second place. They earned 2,000 points, and they're sitting right now at 8,680 HCS points. And then third seed is Denial, and they actually placed fifth. Optic Halo and Cloud9 took the third and fourth seeds in the Gamers for Giving. So your top 3 right now are Evil Genius, Counter Logic, and Denial. So you're going to be seeing some good competition then. And then there's the wild card from ESL, who's going to be coming over as well. And I'm blanking on who that was. Vibe?
It's Vibe. Okay. Yes.
So that's going to be our, I guess for the top 8, I guess I'll read off the rest of them. Optic Halo, Cloud9, Straight Rippin', Elevate, and Noble Black. So those are the top 8 from HCS. They're playing for the championship at PAX East with the wild card Vibe from ESL. So some good Halo coming by. If you are going to be at PAX East, definitely let us know. We'll have some Podtacular swag for you to hand out. And of course, we just like to meet up and get to meet some fellow Halo community members, which would be awesome. Get to talk competitive Halo, get to talk lore, get to talk whatever. So lots of good stuff to come with that. So that's it on for the news for the most part. Let's go ahead and dive into some Breakout stuff. So as far as the game type, I'd say it's pretty much a classic, very SWAT-like Slayer game mode. I'm assuming everyone that's listening has already played it or know what it is. So I'm not going to go into the horrible details of how you actually play it. But I guess Uni, while you were I think you spent the most time from the beta in, or at least a significant amount of time in Breakout. So what do you think of Breakout as a competitive game mode for Halo 5 Guardians? Because it seems like that's the way 343 is kind of taking the multiplayer experiences into this kind of arena base. You have your lower shields, lower health, so it's a little more fast paced than the 1 life per round kind of thing. What do you think of that type of system for competitive Halo?
For competitive Halo, it's really hard to say because I didn't get to play against a full squad of 4 top notch players. But there were games that did go down to the wire, instances where you outthink them and you outplay them and you're rewarded, and it's competitive in that aspect. But I feel like there are some changes that need to be made, whether it's in the foundation of not just Slayer but potentially an objective in the game type, or the way that they lay out the maps. But it could be competitive. I just need to see more from the pros playing against each other and really seeing how they go at it.
Gotcha. From the map perspective, I think a lot of the stuff is going to be tweaked along the lines. And one of the things that we found out during the beta was that each one of those maps is pretty much completely forgeable. Now, yes. We didn't get too much details on so take Trench and Crossfire, for example. I don't know if the floor is going to be forgeable. You can set the inclines and set the actual forge the actual floor pieces together, but all the actual pieces that you would think you would be able to move, you can actually forge everything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It sounded like, even at least for Crossfire, that the stage and the house were even forged.
Yeah, I believe they were, because if you watch some of the earlier builds from the sprint, you could see that the house was a lot more open, with less pillars and no wall, and then they just forged in a wall and thicker pillars.
So I think that kind of speaks volumes, at least from just the Forge aspect, because we got quite a bit of good vibes from the Forge community for Orion and Pegasus, and then taking a look at some of the Breakout maps. If this gets something, or if this is something that kind of gets picked up and adopted early on, then you're going to have a lot of mappers out there create these really awesome breakout maps. And you're going to be able to use a lot of different tactics that I think forgers have used in the past, like with Halo 3 and Halo Reach and Halo 4, to come up with some pretty nifty ideas for this kind of, especially if you're going off the speedball idea, which Breakout seems to be based off of from the sprint.
Mm-hmm.
There seems to be a lot of options that this kind of opens up with Forge.
Yeah, I like being able to forge. We just need to make sure that they keep in mind some symmetry. You know, it's got to be symmetrical maps.
Now, what do you think about elevation, having a lot of different tiers? Because it seems like from just the two maps that we had, there were certain levels that it kind of gave you a good vantage point, and some of them maybe a little more so than others. So how important do you think verticality is going to be for something like this versus actually having a lot more of the obstacles in the way?
Yeah, Brent, what was it? Trench had the height, and Crossfire didn't. It was more just the obstacles. I felt like I enjoyed Trench because you could do more up, down, and side to side, whereas Crossfire, that was just basic arena or speedball. You know, you got that set flat arena that you run around, and it's the only height was really the tower for the battle rifle.
Yeah,
that it's fun, but you can't really hide at all and do any sneaky plays on a map like that. Whereas on Trench, you've got more height covered. You've got so many different ways that you can go. You can clamber up on stuff, and you can move a lot, just so much more than you can, and sneak around. And it creates a whole bunch of different possibilities that I really liked. So I'd like to see more verticality introduced in the maps, just like it was in Trench.
Right.
But I also understand why they did it like just a plain arena speedball map for Crossfire.
I think having that verticality, though, kind of leading off of what you said, gives a little more options for being able to pull off different tactics. And I think it also opens up the ability for people to do different things more often. So on something like Crossfire, you're stuck with very few tactics, where it's mostly flat. So you know a couple of places that someone will go or someone only can go, where with Trench you have a lot more options. There's a lot more that you have to pay attention to. And I think from a tactics standpoint and strategy, you have a lot more options to kind of change up your game style and to approach the enemy team.
Yeah. And like you were saying, a whole like different strategies and tactics. Like you didn't even get to use ground pound like at all on Crossfire, but on Trench you could use it because you had the height advantage. If you wanted to finish up the last guy of the round with a ground pound, you could do that. It wasn't really a possibility on Crossfire.
Now, at any point, did you kind of get a like Hang 'em High feel? Because Hang 'em High, I kind of got a tiny throwback to, not necessarily because of the size, but you had those blocks and it was a very structured layout with the bridges. Did you ever kind of get that kind of vibe with Breakout?
I saw the similarity, but it didn't really play to Breakout or Hang 'em High for me.
Yeah.
With like the what comes with Breakout, the heightened lethality, and I just didn't get the actual feel, but I saw the characteristics and the similarities of, especially of what was Trench. I'm always getting them mixed up in my head.
Yeah.
Trench was, I could see like Hang 'em High. You got the two different towers, and then you've got that open middle area, but it's very compact. Nothing like Hang 'em High in that aspect.
One thing I think would be interesting if they experimented with would be asymmetrical Crossfire maps, having basically two sides be designed a little bit different. I know like there's a big focus on it's even all the way across. You have the same kind of tactics. But I'm wondering if you can basically have those two swap sides every round or something, you can have different ways of going about it, and it basically changes up the game after every round.
I could see asymmetrical maps if you're changing sides every time, kind of like how Call of Duty does Search and Destroy. Each team gets an offense, then a defense, then offense, then defense. But I could see that happening, although it just seems a little bit strange to have them do it. If they haven't tested it out, I would highly recommend that they do actually test that out. That's something I haven't even thought about.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea, and it could be really good if the maps are designed well.
Right. I would like to see kind of the idea that the pro team would have for it, because I know a lot of the Halo 3 maps were geared towards that one-sided objective stuff, and you can't exactly do that with Breakout because it's Slayer. But I'm thinking kind of along the similar lines where you have one side that may be a little more built out, but you have another side where you can actually get out quickly, but get into and maybe behind the other team and try to approach from different angles. So I'm wondering if possible map designs similar to, or at least with a similar thought style of Halo 3, where you have that asymmetrical map style, but there are different aspects of each side that can counterbalance the other, whether it be weapon placement or certain forged objects in this case, that could really give it a different experience than just the same thing over and over again. Because I know one feedback thing that was permeated through the Halo community was the redundancy that you get from playing the same thing over and over and over again.
Like, what was it? I was going to say, like Zanzibar, you said different sides of the map having different aspects. Like Zanzibar, you got Camp Roman on one side with the sniper rifle for the defending team, but on the other side of the map, you've got camouflage for the attacking team on the other tower. It's like simple balances like that are kind of like, that's what you made me think about. I wanted to bring it up that maps like that even they had it in Halo 2.
Yeah, I didn't even think about Zanzibar. You also have that shotgun over there by Invis as well, so you could have a shotgun wielding ninja, basically, in a sense. As far as some of the other stuff with like just the game type itself, do you think it kind of plays well with the Halo sandbox? Because I think it's very iconic to Slayer. It's very iconic to kind of a mix between like classic Halo Slayer and SWAT, having the reduced health and shields. Very fast paced, very quick turnaround on the rounds, as I'm sure that you've encountered a lot. You think it really kind of plays well with the Halo sandbox as it currently stands, or would it be able to kind of hang with some of the current Halo stuff and make it actually a good viable option in Halo 5? Because for the most part, it seems like it works very well.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't have played it as much as I did if I didn't find it enjoyable. And it worked well in the sandbox. There are some tweaks, like I said, that they could implement and make it even better. But ultimately, I would love to see a ranked Breakout playlist in Halo 5 off launch.
That would be interesting. That's actually not a bad idea.
I really liked it because it had a really big Gears of War execution feel in the Halo sandbox. That was my favorite thing. Competitive Gears is extremely intense, and with the multiple rounds going, that's why I kind of felt like it worked. And I would really like to see it played on some of the other maps with objective, such as Empire. Like if it was one bomb fast, right? Or capture the point on the indoor base and the attacking team starts on the outside. I feel like it's a game type that could work across a lot of different maps outside of just symmetrical maps.
Well, Empire was symmetrical.
Yeah, I guess if you cut it down the other way. I think of it as a outdoor, indoor, I guess, but
yeah, if you split it from sniper to sniper along that line, it is symmetrical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes, then I'm thinking on the outdoor to indoor side, right. But you're right.
Right. There's also,
I think it's natural to be a competitive game type. It just the few games that I play, it just seems that it would be just kind of a natural fit into a competitive style of play, where it would be a ranked playlist.
I think that's what they're really hoping for, though.
Yes.
I think we could even see it further than just a ranked playlist. I'd love to see how the competitive community really feels. I haven't kind of tapped into seeing what they felt about it. But I think like a game type like that would be kind of a nice change of pace and kind of exciting to watch. Not as a like deciding factor game type, but one of those game 1 or game 2 type game types for the set. I just think it would be a really awesome change of pace because certain teams are better at certain styles of gameplay, and I think this would throw another wrench for a team to learn how to handle it in the best way.
Right.
The competitive community they're pretty positive about it, but some people don't like how quick it is to kill, and they don't like the objective. But they like the fair starts, the maps being symmetrical, and it being very straightforward. You've got the same guns, even if it's an SMG and pistol. The better person with like the more accuracy and smarter plays will win.
Yeah. What are some of the negatives, I guess, that would be my question?
They just don't like the quick kill time because it's not consistent against all the along all the game types. Like if you have a tournament, you don't want to have tournament of SWAT, snipers, and then like the official HCS game types. You want to have it with a consistent health and shields that go across all the different game types so that everyone knows what's going on all the time. And mixing it up, it's just kind of a weird variable. It's like tossing in a Griffball game into the HCS season 1 finals. It's as game 5. You'd be like, this is a completely different game. And that's probably one of the biggest complaints I heard.
Gotcha. I think as far as the health and shields go, I would be willing to assume 343 is going to let people have those options to tweak that when the game comes out. So as far as having that ability to balance that out, I'm guessing 343 is going to be smart enough to let that be in there. I would like to see if they would want to implement other game types in there. One thing I had in mind, and I threw the idea around a couple people, I don't know if I told this to you, Uni, but it's going to be part of my feedback to 343 when I finally get it done, is in the books, I think this was actually Fall of Reach, when the Spartans were doing their training, and one of the things was to like get to the top of a mountain or hill or something and ring a bell. I'm thinking if there's a way to forge that kind of arena in Breakout to have that as a game type. So you have you're basically fighting for control of this tower, and the first one to get to the top and quote unquote ring a bell wins the round.
Yeah, that was Fall of Reach. That was when they were kids training.
Yeah,
am I right?
Yeah, it was during the exercises.
I think it was the first exercise they mentioned. They had John's team go in. He runs up and he rings the bell, but the rest of his team doesn't make it. Right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'd like to see different game types forged into Breakout. Like I said, I'm hoping that they've tried like all these different possibilities. I really hope they do, and see what works best, and can tell us why it works best, because I'd like to know.
Now, we didn't get any of the Covenant weapons minus the energy sword in the beta. Do you think there's going to be any room for Covenant weapons in Breakout? It seems like it's geared towards not necessarily, at least with how it's currently designed.
Since plasma weapons are supposed to be like the shield remover, I don't see them trying to implement it into it. But trying to think, a carbine is possible as one of the weapons, but it's like all the normal plasma. I don't see them trying to be implemented.
Did MLG in the past, or I guess competitive Halo in the past, have some of the Covenant weapons in there? I know for like some of the really, really old MLG, you couldn't exactly take them out of the map, so they were in there. But for like Halo 3 and Halo Reach, weren't there some of the maps with like plasma pistols in there?
Yeah, Halo 3 had a couple plasma pistols. Reach had plasma pistols. And I'm trying to think. Halo 2 had plasma rifles. That's because you couldn't really customize it all that much. But trying to think about Halo 4, I know there were needlers on some maps.
Really?
I can't remember.
Wow.
There were storm rifles too. Yeah, there were storm rifles and suppressors as well. Ghost put those on a drift, and at the end of some of the tunnels, there were storm rifles and suppressors.
Okay.
Which were pretty interesting. But yeah, I could see a carbine being implemented into Breakout, but I don't really see any other maps or any other weapons being put in from the Covenant aspect, at least. I'd like to see light rifle make an appearance.
That was a sick light rifle.
Yeah, it was in the sprint. I saw a light rifle in the house on Crossfire, I'm pretty sure, for early testing, but I guess they took it out.
Right. It seems like just from the lore perspective, it seems like a UNSC battle simulation, so it's focusing on UNSC weaponry.
Yeah.
But, well, I take that back. There were 2 plasmas in the house, so that's not necessarily all UNSC weaponry then.
Yeah, if it's not exclusive to the UNSC weapons, then I'd like to see them try and expand out.
Right.
It'd be very, very nice.
Yeah.
No bolt shot, please.
Yeah, we're not going through that again. They need to fix that for Halo 5 if they decide to keep that in there. I think as long as it's not a starting weapon, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
If it was a pickup, that'd be fine.
Right.
Like if they put it instead of like the human shotgun, and they put it bottom middle, as the power weapon, I could see them doing that.
I definitely could. You have to see how it balances out with the scatter shot. Again, we don't even know if they're going to keep these weapons in there. I guess we know the light rifle is going to be in there, but we're not sure about all the Promethean weapons. So we still have to find out.
I enjoyed the Forerunner weapons in Halo 4. Even the suppressor. On a good connection, the suppressor was nasty.
You have to be fairly close though, right?
Yeah. But I think I had one King of the Hill game in Free For All where I got 46 kills with a suppressor.
Whoa!
It was insane. It was like the one time I pulled host in Free For All, and I was going for the suppressor commendations, and yeah, I just went off. They all had to come to the hill, so I just shredded them.
Wow!
With a suppressor.
That's kind of awesome.
I was doing pretty decent with it until they did the big weapons tune.
Well, they made it better with the weapons tune, didn't they? But they made all the weapons better. So,
except the DMR.
Yeah, I wouldn't classify.
Yeah,
I wouldn't classify it. What they did was better at least for me, because after the weapons tune, I couldn't get any kills with it.
Let's see. They just tweaked down the auto aim and aim assist, right? And then made it so it killed quicker for all the automatics. I think it was.
Yeah, that's. I believe that's right.
Yeah,
and then they buffed up the BR a little bit, and then they
tried to make all the primaries have roughly the same kill time.
Gotcha.
Right.
Which absolutely killed the DMR.
The DMR was too good anyways. I'm sorry. The DMR for Halo 4 off launch was just too good. You could shoot way too far away with like the red reticle range. Like you could lock onto someone from way too far.
I agree with you. They did need to bring it down, but
yeah,
it felt like the kill time was the same with it, but it just seemed like it didn't kill as fast as the other weapons when you used it. At least
after the patch,
the BR buff was just too. The BR became the best weapon in the game.
Right.
After that, and there was just no point in not using the best weapon in the game.
Exactly. Back to the Breakout stuff, though. with the 2 maps in there, do you think that we're going to see a lot of maps that have that central trench area, or do you think we're going to have some maps that are going to be flat all the way across and then really build on verticality off of that? Because I would actually like to see some maps that don't necessarily have that trench but have towers and other structures around the map to facilitate that vertical gameplay.
I mean, anything that promotes height advantage in map control is a good decision competitively. And I'd like to see them try and build off that verticality. And I don't know if adding a trench to make the height seem higher is the right choice. But I guess it kind of makes sense. But at the same time, I'd like to try and see a couple flat ones that don't require you to run into a trench in the middle every time.
I'm thinking that just off the start, you start on the low ground of the map, and then you have to gain the high ground and get that that height advantage. Whereas you have people that basically just go down into the trench, and then you automatically have that height advantage. So I'm thinking a little more of you need to take over certain parts of the map with height control off the start, instead of there are certain parts where you innately have height advantage if someone decides to go down there. And I know that, like, for the trenches, there was at least risk going down there because there were grenades in trench.
Yeah, there were grenades on trench down there.
Crossfire, there wasn't really anything down there.
Nope.
So it was almost really no reason.
I believe there was a shotgun in the earlier versions on the Sprint. I think they had a shotgun down there.
Right, but eventually nothing was there.
Yeah, there was nothing there in the beta for us.
All the grenades were over on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we know about the grenades on the stage, don't we, Dust?
Yes, I got my extermination off of it.
You got an exterm?
Yeah.
Yeah, he made it rain nades.
It didn't give me.
You just spam a bunch?
Yeah, I threw a clip up on YouTube. It didn't actually give it to me, but I went back and verified with the stats, and I got the exterm.
Nice.
Yeah. It was pretty nasty.
I liked how they had the stage kind of a little open. You had to risk it to go get those grenades.
Mm-hmm.
And the grenades are really powerful in Breakout. So it was a risk versus reward. And I thought it was really clever that they did it. I don't know about having as many grenades as they had up there.
Yeah, there were 6.
5 up there.
There were 6 of them.
But I feel like having a couple there is a good idea. Like trench, I would run down. One of my strategies, I usually held the middle. Then I would do my fancy bank nades to go check out like different corners.
Right.
And having that many down there, it's kind of ridiculous, but I like that there were some grenades down there.
Mm-hmm. For the ones on the stage, that was my strategy half the time, was to go pick up those nades, and then you would receive a call out. You would pop a grenade down wherever the call out was, and a lot of the times I would get hit markers, and I would just run up there. I would spam nades to where I knew people were likely to go, so when I get up there, I'd immediately turn the house and just nade their entryway, and then I would nade one right on the other side of the ramp leading up to stage from their side, so I would have both of those covered. And I got quite a few easy pickings off of that.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt that. It's the nades with that positioning on the map were just deadly. You could hit any spot on the map from stage with grenades.
Right. So do we want to talk a little about, or do you mind sharing some strategies that you used on both of these maps, or?
Let's
because I know you had your perfect game strategy.
Yeah, I can
that you have in your video.
Our trench strategy. What we did is we sent one guy who grabbed the battle rifle, went up on the left assault rifle tower. The AR would spawn right up at the top there.
Mm-hmm.
But we'd take the battle rifle up there, so we just call it BR tower. Then we sent someone on the very left tunnel to make sure no one flanked there. Then we sent someone on the very right to make sure we weren't being flanked there. And I would watch just the middle and try and push up slowly and then grab grenades. And this whole time, the guy on the top of the BR tower is watching the middle as well, trying to make sure I can get up and get those grenades.
Mm-hmm.
And then we slowly push together. If we kill someone, we'll push up further up on that side and just use your numbers. It's all about getting the first kill. So we play it really passively, and then we just abuse it with our numbers.
Do you feel that there was ever, with that setup, a time where you felt one of your teammates were overexposed? 'Cause I know that BR tower can actually be very open depending on like where enemies decide to go. Because that you could shoot at that location from like what 7 or 8 different spots on just the enemy side.
Yeah, that's a really hard position to play. That's why I didn't end up doing it. We let a guy who was more practiced up there do it.
Gotcha.
He could back down at any point a little to the left. He's very exposed. And then me, actually, on the back center stage, it's really easy to get a grenade on where I normally am at from the opposite tower. So I had to keep an eye out for that at all times. Mm-hmm. All they had to do was bank it properly, and I was toast. Luckily, not many people knew about the bank, and I was pretty safe. But occasionally, when we played up against better people, they would take me out, and that's usually when the strategy would fall through.
Right. I know a lot of people push on those hallways, and I've been one of those people where I either get really lucky or I really get unfortunate, where I can surprise a couple people who are going that way, or I'll meet with 2 opponents and I'm just totally screwed at that point. So I think you're pretty much right on there about covering both sets of hallways and really trying to make sure that you have visibility on as much of the map as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think there's a lot of, because of the verticality, do you think there's a few blind spots that are probably most common that people tend to forget about? Because I know, at least watching your perfect game video, a lot of the times those blind spots were just made by people pushing up too far to trying to clean up a kill. It didn't seem like there were any points where like another team would really have the chance to get behind you unless you were actually man down or you were all consolidated into one area. But do you think there are any kind of blind spots to trench when it comes to like setting up a good strategy?
Not that I know of. It's a pretty open center area, which will cut down on creating blind spots if you have that open middle. And as long as people are watching where they're supposed to and aren't just really intently focused on one spot, you will have complete visibility. Just like I always, if you watch my perfect game, I'm always panning around and scanning left, right, unzooming to keep like that focus widened so I can see everything. And I just slowly push up and keep scanning left, right, left, right. It's like in Call of Duty, when you're doing that training, he's like, check your corners. You have to make sure you check the corners and slowly push up. There won't be any blind spots on your way up into their base, mm-hmm. and just sweeping through like a SWAT team, and you'll be fine.
Do you think that actually fosters to more strategic gameplay, or do you think that kind of opens up to the potential to stalemates? Because I think of if you're able to see pretty much the whole enemy side of the map and they're not able to sneak by you, they have the ability to do the same thing, and that can create stalemates.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think that's an issue with something like Trench? Because I feel like having a few options to at least infiltrate, not necessarily be something that you can't be aware of, but just be something that maybe offers a weak point to where you can get momentum going in a game. Possibly having that in there to where you don't cause a stalemate.
There were always stalemates in Breakout on both of the maps. It's just kind of how it played out. If you watched my comeback video, we didn't push at all. We made sure we picked off one of their guys with either a grenade or just gunfire. We picked off one, and then we'd slowly start pushing. We never made the first move, really, unless you were for sure able to get the kill. Like they made a mistake, then you engaged. We never really started engagements. you have to make them go out of their comfort zone, out of position, and of course that stalemates. It'll cause stalemates against other good people because they have the same discipline. They're not going to push out unless they know they can get the kill, or unless they have more players on the field. But it stinks. But that's why a lot of people want objective, is to break the stalemates and speed up the gameplay potentially.
So do you think the Slayer form wouldn't work in competitive Halo? Like the, I guess, top tier?
I think it could. But there's one thing, this is one suggestion that I've been thinking about for Breakout, is you know how on Crossfire it's a very, very open backfield for your base? Like you start and then you have to run like 20 feet to go actually find the first piece of cover. An objective-ish idea, but still it would keep the game focused on the slaying aspect, would be like kind of King Me in Checkers, where you have a guy run all the way to the back of the enemy base and he just like touches the wall, and either if he can win the round for his team or he can get like normal shields or some kind of little boost. I thought it would be a good way to promote like map movement and prevent those stalemates that we were talking about, is if like someone could run back there. So if it's like a
power up for each team, but you have to go to the other side.
Yeah. Or you touch it and it's the end of the round, which I think could be cool. You have like, say, a 1-on-2 situation. You could have the two players. One guy tries to engage the one. The other guy makes a run for the wall, you know?
Right.
And then, or you could have it so that one guy can try and sneak past those other two to the end, to that wall, and try and win the round just by being sneaky. That's something I thought of as a potential idea, but to promote map movement, but I don't know how well it would actually work when implemented.
Do you think the maps would need to be a little bit narrower than their current form to really help that? Because they were a little bit wider. I mean, for one person to have a chance against two people from running and hitting that wall.
Well, or you could pull an Ender's Game and basically have a full team just run for the back wall and just have a cage around one person and have one person get to the end and touch the wall.
But, like, there's no way a squad of 4 people are going to be able to run realistically all the way through the base and then through that final open stretch that's extremely long. But the width of the map, I felt like Crossfire was wider than Breakout or Trench. Jesus.
I feel like
Crossfire
the same way.
Played wider, but ultimately I don't think it was too wide in any sense, you know.
I think the openness of Crossfire may have made it seem a little bit more wide. I think the buildings on Trench, and I do actually think Trench was a little bit narrow, but I think the way that the buildings were designed and your landing zones on either side are actually smaller because the map actually shifted over from the middle. So your middle is actually the widest part, but you have smaller parts on each side. So I think in that terms, it actually was smaller, but you have the extra verticality and those bases there to where it does feel like you're playing a more vertical game than a horizontal game.
Mm-hmm.
When you were temporarily off, I talked about the little shelves on the top of Trench and how you can kind of use those as perspective to look down to, like, if you're trying to find the last guy, you could use that as kind of a spectator or like a lookout point, or you could use it to sneak up and try to get a sneak on the team, because most people, at least from the games I found, don't look up there all the time.
Yeah, it was a very uncommon place to look or to even be, and it was very risk reward because it was so open, but you had so much height advantage, and you could see everything on the map when you got up there, especially on like the bigger I don't know what you call it. There's like the whole stage above I think it's on your right side that you could jump up. There was a whole lot of room. Like the rest were those little tiny cuts railing pretty much, but the one that was actually like a platform was really cool. To get up there, you could check everything, and then ultimately it was gonna be like if two people looked at you, you were dead. But
right.
But you could see everyone on the map. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. As far, I guess we've talked a lot about Trench from the Crossfire perspective. I know that one was one I got to play a lot during the media preview, and I kind of took a keen liking to it because of my freaking grenade randomness. But it has a very different playstyle, but it feels that the predictability on Crossfire was a lot easier than the predictability on Trench, because you had one team go, or one, I guess most of the time from what I've seen, you had a couple people go in house, you had one person going up to the BR tower and staying at the BR tower, and then you had one guy trying to go either for the AR and camp mid or go over to the stage. So it seemed like Crossfire, it was very predictable compared to Trench.
Yeah, it was a lot more predictable because it was also a lot more open. So you could see the entire enemy team's movements. Trench, it was a little easier to sneak around, but like I said, there weren't any real blind spots. So you had to play it extremely well or wait for someone to make a mistake and capitalize on it. Like Crossfire, it's just too open and it's just too open. I'll say that to make it any different. Like
right.
People found that strategy with the two on the house, one on the like rotating in the front middle or stage, and then one on BR tower, and you didn't have to change from that because you've got all the cover on the house side, but there's no cover anywhere else. It's predictable. You're going to hide where the cover's at, which is behind the house normally.
I think for Crossfire to really be a map that's sustainable in, I guess, the final version, they need a little more in terms of structures, I think, scattered around Crossfire, something to kind of help break up the monotony and the repetitiveness of it. So maybe add a little more verticality in certain areas.
Do you think this wasn't designed to be a little bit more of a speedball? Because this is obviously very well based off of paintball, and
it's what it feels
paintball,
like.
You have,
but it's
this
the same.
Map felt like a speedball map, not a like objective style map that you would do in paintball. So maybe they're looking for those faster game times on that map with very little cover and more just overall speed. That's just how, like, looking at that map again, and the little bit I played on it, that's how I always felt about this map in particular, is knowing that it was inspired off paintball.
It was you just felt it was a little too speedball feel?
I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it. I think there's going to be so many different versions of this map that we haven't seen yet or are yet to be made when the community gets their hands on it. I think it'd be completely fine.
And some of them will actually pertain to Breakout.
Yeah.
Just waiting for Duquesne to make a racetrack on them, you know.
That'd be interesting. Have a race going on in the background while people are fighting out in the arena.
Oh, that would be cool.
That'd be kind of funny. What other kind of game types do you think would be good for this? I'm trying to think of game types that would work well off of a non-respawning system, but it's hard to really think of anything that comes to mind. I'm thinking like Counter-Strike stuff, so you have like the assault, basically.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like if you had a little flag in the back and you just had to pick it up in the other team's base. I think that'd be cool. You don't have to take it back because
that's kind of like
obviously
the button idea.
By the time you're pushed that far, you probably already have numbers, or you're pretty lucky to get across a map.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what Uni was reaching the other side, right?
Yeah, just reach the other side. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to see an objective where you have to be stationary to play it. Like people are saying, oh, just put a bomb, like search and destroy. Your guy is going to be standing there for at least a couple seconds, and grenades are so strong. Your health is so low.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it doesn't make sense to
What if
make
it was a
the
2
player
or 3
be
second arm
stationary.
time?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Is it's a low arm time.
I don't know. I just don't think it would work that well. Even if like the quicker arm time could help, but ultimately I'm just not a fan of stationary objective play, especially when you've got that heightened lethality.
And now that I'm thinking about it, the map size also might not contribute very well. It's one thing to have a big map like in Counter-Strike or Call of Duty where you're doing something like that, and you have the multiple plant sites, but because of how quickly you can get from one part of the map to the other and how open it is, I guess that actually doesn't work too well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys ever played Rainbow Six Vegas 2, but they had the VIP, their form of the VIP game type, where the VIP had a weaker weapon, but then the rest of your teammates could have their typical weapon, and you had to get them to the evacuation point. Now, obviously not exactly in that form, but I think something like that would also be pretty cool. Each team has a VIP that you have to get across the map with a weaker weapon. I think that could be an interesting objective.
And doing that per round?
Yeah, like, I think in Vegas, each team had an offense and defensive side. I can't remember if each team had a VIP, but I remember moments where that person with the weaker weapon would pull off something crazy because obviously they have the weaker weapon set compared to everybody else. They can't pick up other weapons on the map, which it kind of made it kind of that more moment when they were able to pull off the win in that form. I don't know. Just thinking of different objective types that other games have used on the one life style. It's just
right.
There's not many of them, but the ones that do it are very successful, like a Counter-Strike, like you were saying.
Yeah, and the thing with I was thinking about this for a while, and the only thing that I could think that came to mind was the whole ring the bell on the tower thing, because at least that's a neutral objective, and you're still fighting over territory in the map. And you have to be sure that you're controlling that tower before you go up there, because by the time you try to climb that tower, you're exposed.
Yeah, I was about to say, what if you had it so the person, or you spawn on, let's just use Crossfire, for example. Instead of spawning in the back middle, they spawn kind of towards the BR tower side, and they have to make a push for that flag or the bell at the top of the stage. But like obviously they'd have to like clamber up 2 or 3 times to go touch that. They'd have to work kind of like at a diagonal direction towards the enemy team, but could also work with more of their own side of the map.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that could actually work pretty well.
I think if you designed a map from scratch for it, you could actually do opposing sides and have the structures in such a way where you do have that kind of blocked visibility from either side to where you're not just instantly spamming the other team, but you have structures made in such a way where you can have multiple routes to climb certain structures, and then you have pretty much a central structure that is the higher or one of the highest points on the map, and that's where you go to ring the bell. So it's basically some kind of central mound or tower in a sense.
It's like the ultimate king of the hill.
Pretty much, yeah.
More like the literal king of the hill.
Yeah. So if we're going to talk about Fall of Reach, when Halsey finds John, he's king of the hill.
Yep. They're playing King of the Hill.
Smacking down all the other little kids.
Indeed he is. Pins actually asked a pretty interesting question. Would Breakout work on a map like Pit or Pitfall? And I hadn't really thought about that. I hadn't really thought about using any other symmetrical Halo maps for Breakout.
Yeah, I thought about different maps, but I don't think it would work well on Pit because Pit is sectioned off, you've got the two sides with the big wall in between them. And the only way to get to the other side through that big wall is through those long, narrow tunnels. And you can't push down a long, narrow tunnel in Breakout, or else you're putting yourself at risk. So
Trench is a perfect example.
it'd be way too stalematey for someone to like. No one's going to push down long hall. No one's going to push down green hallway, and it's just too hard to say that everyone should push through sword because it's a little more open. It's like, because as soon as you go down one of those two hallways, you're toast. If you try and go down like the sword hallway too, that bottom runway where the overshield spawns underneath sword, that's also a death trap. So it's like there's not really anywhere you can push safely, and it would just be too stalematey, I think.
I think for objective type maps, the ones that keep coming to my mind are Ghost Town and Turf. I don't know why those two maps keep coming to my mind, but that style of map where there's different levels, there's different avenues to get across into the map to the objective point. I think a map like that would work really well if we were trying to do objective within Breakout. I don't know what you guys think, but
could you elaborate more?
Well, like, like on Ghost Town, right? You have the center building, right? And it was 2 levels. And then also in the base where you had the 3 different tiers of kind of landings you could look out. You had the bridges that were going across the top. And then the whole left side where the sniper spawned, there were 2 different levels to go through there. I just, thinking of the cover and the weapons, I don't know, I just figured that would be, for Ghost Town, really fun for an offensive defensive type map. And then on Turf, you have the 2 roads basically that lead into that middle point of each on that map where the objective was down by the Down Scarab, where each side had its cover points, but it also had its open points where you were going to be exposed. So the offensive or defensive team would be able to take you out were you to give up that position.
And what objective would they be playing?
I think like a take the bomb in or a capture the point, kind of like you were talking, hit the point on the map on Crossfire on the wall.
Okay, I'm trying to. I had a good idea to elaborate off that, but I lost it. Oh, you know how you guys have all seen Tron and Tron Legacy, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know, in Tron, the first one, they do the light cycles, and it's one level, and then all of a sudden in Tron Legacy, it just goes boom, and it drops, and it does a second level, and you're like, oh my god,
yeah.
right? It's like, if you got me thinking with Ghost Town, how that sniper room had the 2 different levels, the top and the bottom. If they had a second level for Breakout, like where you could do the top and the bottom level, I think Halo 4 did have a silly map like that called Honeycomb, which was just absolutely ridiculous. But I feel like if they did something like that Tron, it could be pretty cool. People fight for that top level, and you can look through the floor.
What if these Breakout maps had like live map changes, like
shifting?
Maybe, yeah, per round, something like you just said, like in Tron, where the floor drops out and there's tunnels to get across to the other side.
Well, and on that topic, Laird in the chat made the recommendation or suggestion of possibly destructible environment elements. Like breakable pallets. I feel like
that might be a little too far away from the like speedball aspect, but I've always been a fan of potentially adding destructible environments.
I think that'd be perfect for normal play. I don't know about for Breakout.
I think if you do it to Breakout, it would have to be very specific parts of the map where it's not going to give you a huge advantage, but it kind of exposes certain areas of the map to where you're kind of limiting where like opposing teams can actually go.
Like, what if you threw a nade into, say, the house on the right of Crossfire, right? And it blew out the pillars. So you lose those 2 pieces of cover
right,
or
something like
a
that.
pillar.
Yeah.
It would have to take a grenade. I don't think they could allow it to be gunfire.
I think it's an interesting
Okay.
concept.
It's more interactive map element, pretty much.
Right.
Like in Vertigo in Halo 4, you had to shoot it,
Well,
waste some ammo.
I feel like that's
looking at
been always Halo's big thing. Like in Halo 2, right? When they first showed off Zanzibar, they're like destructible environments. And I always feel like that's been the promise that's never been lived up to in Halo. And it's kind of always been that thing I've wanted but haven't gotten yet.
I think a lot of Halo is dependent upon so much map movement, though, where if you start to make big changes to map flow, then you may get some results that don't yield in a balanced gameplay. It seems like Bungie with Halo 2 had a lot of that kind of figured out, because you look at containment with the gates, you look at Zanzibar, you look at Terminal, and those all had some really good interactive features, but you also have to look at the map, the size of the map too, where you weren't playing in an arena type game where you are in this highly controlled environment. I mean, most of the time for that, you were playing with bigger lobbies than just 4v4, and you were using objectives where you didn't have the limit on the respawn as well.
Yeah. I don't think they need to be major changes, but I feel like they're trying to kind of go there with, well, I mean, I know that was certain affinity, but with what they were kind of doing on Sanctuary, well, not Sanctuary, the Halo 2 anniversary version, with the water element,
Shrine,
masking your cover, Shrine,
Yeah.
thank you, or the stacked lights on Lockdown, and that being able to bust out the center glass on Lockdown. I feel like that kind of stuff, maybe they're looking at different ways to do it. That's not totally game changing, but it does change something. It gives a team a different opportunity to be more aggressive, or maybe a new cover system.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could maybe find some ways to make the environment actually shift in a way that's going to be permanent, that doesn't completely like block out like the water does on Shrine. But I don't know, I think that'd be a cool thing, especially for these Crossfire game types, because it is very fast. I think that's what's so cool about it to me, is how fast the games seem to go by. But if they were able, like the Tron thing, just the dropping floor and minimal cover down there, but it's a change to the map that each team has to be aware of.
Mm-hmm. I like that. It can't be too much, but just the little things, it could be interesting. I'd like
what if
for
the
them
bridge
to play
broke
with it.
on Shrine where turret is, and it like snapped in half and collapsed down, and so
Well, that's kind of a big thing, but
I mean, you're still able to go across each up, like they
you would jump instead of walk or something.
Like you could just walk up a ramp. It's just not like a straight across type thing. I mean, I'm not sitting here looking at the map or anything, but
right,
some form of change there.
Thinking about it for Breakout, though, if you were to go down that route, because of how quick the rounds were, you would almost have to make that kind of destructible environments be persistent whenever they get destroyed.
What do you mean by that?
So whenever a destructible piece gets destroyed or damaged, it persists through the subsequent rounds. Because the rounds are so fast, if you have that reset every time, by the time you manage to take that destructible piece of scenery down, you're probably already halfway through the round anyways.
Or if it was like an off-spawn type thing.
I think that they should probably reset every time. I wouldn't like to see them persist through the rounds.
Well, that's why I'm kind of thinking, if you really are looking at destructible scenery, maybe Breakout isn't quite the place for it.
Yeah.
What if like between rounds, as your teams are resetting, you kind of got to see the map shifting in that like quick lapse, so you could be like, okay, it's shifting to form whatever. Okay, now
so
we
have
know
the
what
map
we need
change
to do.
per round?
No, not like per round, but maybe like in a random round in the set. Like say if it goes, it was like up to 9 games, right? It is when it maxed out. Okay, so say it went past game 5. or game 4, so there was no sweep, the map shifts. And between that 2 rounds, you could kind of see it go bloop on your screen on the preview map that they show, when they pan out and they show you the map before a round starts. And you could kind of see a shift mid game, and then it was that way for the rest of the game.
That's kind of like what I was saying about Breakout being used competitively, though, is if you throw in something that's too different from what they're normally playing for the rest of the tournament, it kind of just is too wild.
Right.
And it doesn't flow well. It sounds like a pretty cool idea. Like in Tron Legacy, he's doing this disc battle against Tron, and then all of a sudden he flips to gravity and it kind of changes. It's pretty cool, but at the same time, I don't think it's a really good element to throw in there in the middle of the game,
That makes sense.
Because we're also looking at the balance aspect of the competitive part of Halo. And if you have something that's going to be changing, that could give an unfair advantage or give a strategic advantage to one team that they may have over that specific configuration or shift of the map than another team has. And I think for Halo, you're really building off of a strategy that's based on a certain set of parameters for the map, for the weapon layout, and you go and change that, then your strategy all of a sudden shifts. I mean, I like all these brainstorming ideas. It's just it's hard to sometimes see how well they can actually fit into something like Breakout.
Yeah, I'd really like to see them test them out and at least let us know. I know, like, they did say for overall just Halo 5, they said they tested shields or no sprinting when your shields were down at all. And it's nice to know that they're thinking about stuff like that and they've tried it. If they could let us know what they've tried for Breakout, it could help us help them, give them better ideas.
Right. It would be cool to see if at some point, maybe not in the too distant future, they go through some of the stuff where we receive this feedback and we're actually looking at this specific implementation and seeing how it fits in with the sandbox of Halo 5 kind of thing. That'd be some very interesting community feedback. And we've kind of gotten a glimpse of that from that first update that Josh Holmes put out, I guess about a month ago, talking about some of the stuff that they were already making changes on based on community feedback. And it would be nice to actually see what they're actually looking at trying. I think that would actually be, the community would be a lot more at ease if we were to see that kind of thing.
Absolutely. It would help people sleep at night, especially if they showed numbers too. That'd be nice, but I don't expect them to show numbers, like the percentages, as long as they say, like, we got a lot of people who want thruster cooldown time to be longer, so we're going to extend it like half a second or something like that.
Right.
It's like, it's cool to know when they make those changes and why they make the changes. And the community feedback program is a really good idea for that. I want to get back to Breakout because I had a good thing I wanted to talk about is power-ups, like camo and overshield, and you had speed boost in Halo 4 and damage boost. I wanted to know what you guys thought about the different power-ups potentially being on map for Breakout games.
When you're talking overshield, are we talking traditional overshield or maybe
we're
like
talking like normal
a shield and a half?
shields?
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking like a normal shield or a normal shield and a half.
I think that'd be cool for objective. I don't know how I'd feel about it in the standard Slayer format, unless it was like top of center house or something along those lines where it could be a push point for each team to kind of head to each game.
I think for the design of the maps that as they currently stand doesn't really facilitate that. Trench might a little bit with having that top bar over the grenades, but I think there needs to be a little more risk to getting something that's in the... It would obviously be a middle map placement of some kind that you would want to try to control and take over. But I think there needs to be a little more build up to where it's harder to push the middle than it currently is. I think trench is a little bit better suited for that. I mean, I like the idea. I think it has to. They would 343 would need to work on how much of an effect those power ups would be. I like the shields idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think camo would be sweet.
I would say active camo, but you have to really limit how long it lasts because of how small the maps actually are. So maybe half the time,
30 seconds or so.
I'm thinking maybe even 15.
That's a fourth of the game time.
30 seconds is the default.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Wow, it feels far longer than that.
I'm thinking 30 seconds is way too long for something like Breakout because of how fast the gameplay is, and because you're walking around that much with low visibility, you can get around the whole map being possibly undetected.
Okay, then I think 15 would be pretty good, but I still think it needs to be like a very exposed pickup for whoever goes after it.
It would have to be exposed, but that makes me want to say that the time needs to be longer than 15 seconds if it's exposed, because the person's going to get shot a few times picking it up. That gets rid of some of the time that they actually have to use the camo effectively. They're going to have to wait for shields to come back, camo to come back all the way, and then they can start making their push, which is already probably like 5 seconds off.
So maybe move it to 20.
Yeah, I'm thinking 20 seconds.
It would have to be 20, 25, but I don't think a full 30 is good, and I think 15 is too little. And especially, you got to think, do you want camo to work for 1 kill or 2 kills? What do you want it to be worth? Because if you use it if you say, okay, if this guy risked getting camo, we want to give him 1 kill for sure, then you could do 20 seconds. But if you wanted to give him maybe 2 kills with it, you'd give him the 25 seconds so that he could shoot at someone, get his camo back, and engage another player later. Have some time to actually work with after the first kill and try and get to the second kill.
I think because of how small the maps are, even the 20 seconds, you have a lot of power with that, because you can run around and you don't even have to engage somebody. You can call out somebody behind maybe one of the like pillars in the back, and then you can run back and keep on looking for someone else, and then your team is pushing on that 1 or 2 guys because they know what the situation is. So you have a lot of power with the camo outside of just being able to go up and possibly take someone out, surprising up on them. You have the ability to call out somebody and then engage a different target. So I'm thinking with the power that you have with active camo, and I mean, I'm thinking if you have 20 seconds, you take the 5 seconds to recharge your shields and to get the camo back, you can check the whole map of trench probably twice in that 15-second period, or at least a good chunk of it.
Yeah. You gotta also wonder how good the camo's gonna be, like how transparent you'll actually be. And that really plays a factor. Because it's
definitely
not
agree.
full-on camo. And it's like everything's tentative. Everything's like related. You gotta make sure that it would work well. But I just wanted to bring up the power-ups, and I feel like camo might be one of the best ones. Speed boost would be interesting, but I don't know how much I'd actually like to see that being used in Breakout.
Yeah, I do kind of like the normal shields or like 110% shields idea. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because that gives you a little more reward of going into fights, and you can kind of push in a little more in situations where you might not be able to, especially in a 2-on-1 situation where, because shields and health are at 75% normal in Breakout. Is that right?
I don't know the exact percentage.
I think it's like 2/3 or 75%, something like that. So if you're looking at 100% shields or 110% shields, something like that, then you're going to have a significant advantage over a 2-on-1 situation. So I think that kind of plays it's a different role than the surprise role that you get with invis or camo, but I think it does play into the risk reward model pretty well.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think what the other abilities were. There was damage boost in Halo 4 as well.
Damage boost, speed boost.
I don't see that being good in a already damage boosted game type. So
speed boost might be interesting.
Yeah. I know speed boost, they had it on a couple maps in Halo 4 in matchmaking default after they made a tweak. I forgot which one. I think it might have been just Haven. There was railgun on one side and a speed boost on the other of Haven for a little in team doubles, which was pretty interesting.
I don't remember it being on too many of the matchmaking maps.
Yeah, they didn't have any abilities normally on maps as pickups in Halo 4. That was that came in much later, actually.
Right.
It wasn't until like the big turbo update that they actually started putting stuff on the map in a big way.
I think the only other power up I can think of that's ever been in Halo is just the custom. So you already have the overshield, the active camo, the speed boost, and the damage boost. So I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
The only other thing I could think of you could possibly do is extended radar, but I don't think that's going to really serve a great purpose on something like Breakout. Just having the increased range on the motion sensor, I don't think is that big of a reward for risk.
Yeah. Well, Breakout didn't even have radar, actually, so it could just be a normal radar.
Oh, it didn't? Wow.
Yeah, it did not. I'm trying to think. I just thought of something.
Did it not have radar or did it not have enemy radar?
I don't think it had a radar.
Radar at all.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember I was putting on my watermark on that perfect game video on the bottom left, and I was like, oh, there's no radar.
Okay.
But I had just thought about what if they made a new kind of ability pickup that would allow you to do like almost infinite thrust, like a quicker recharge time on your thruster pack and stuff like that.
It seems pretty fast right now as it is, though. Because 3 seconds to recharge.
Yeah, so like 1.5 seconds, you just thrust.
That'd be ridiculous.
You could like thrust like 2 or 3 times. I mean, in Breakout, you can only thrust once in an engagement, usually. So if they made it 1.5, you could thrust into a fight and then thrust out of a fight with
How long do you let that last, though? Like 15 seconds?
I'd
give you potentially, I mean, if you timed it perfectly, 10 different thrusts.
Yeah. It would, maybe it just gave you 10 thrusts.
Yeah, like instant thrusts.
Yeah, or like what is that? The gold mushroom in Mario Kart, where you just keep smashing it.
Yeah,
yeah.
Thrust, and
knocks everybody out of your way.
But Penn's Halo brought up something. Wouldn't unlimited thrust take away from a team game? It would make it easier for someone to make an individual push, thrust into the fight, kill the one guy that's alone, and then thrust back. He could for sure win a one-on-one fight, but I don't know if that would necessarily ruin the team aspect about it, but it is something to think about.
And again, it might be something that they've considered with the whole power-ups thing, or maybe not. So maybe that's something that they'll pick up on. I haven't actually thought about that at all until you mentioned it.
Dude, who said this? Receptor17 said Halo 3 flare would be cool. Now, I don't really like flares, but like if you had a grav lift on bottom middle of trench that you could toss up from bottom middle and go up on top of that AR tower and just jump up instantly towards the top of the enemy base, that could be pretty interesting. Something like that. No bubble shields. That'd be too weird for Breakout. And power drain, nah. But a grav lift wouldn't be a half bad idea of a utility thing to have on the map for vertical maps.
Interesting.
It's the one thing I like about talking and having a chat. People can
you get a bunch of different ideas. Exactly.
For you to consider. It's really good.
So we obviously haven't heard anything about equipment being in Halo 5, but that kind of leads along that topic of, because if you do the grav lift, another thing that you could possibly do is a deployable cover. Like if you wanted to strategically block off a route. You could use that to block off a route.
That could be very cool.
You might be able to clamber over it, but it would be like a temporary block.
Yeah, it'd be an obstacle. It would change it. It'd be useful, definitely.
Well, if you tried to clamber over it, that would expose you.
Yeah, it would expose you. It would put your gun down. It would be a horrible idea to try and clamber over it, which makes it a good thing to toss that deployable cover if you need to.
And if someone tries to destroy it, that's a revealing of where the location is. So that's another thing you wouldn't want to touch.
Just trying to think of if they have equipment in Halo 5, like they did in Halo 3, what button are they going to use?
You could do D-pad.
Yeah, I'm thinking D-pad.
Right?
Yeah, like the down arrow or something. Because, I mean, most of the time if you're deploying equipment, you're setting up the position of where you're deploying it, so you kind of have the time to throw it out there. It's not like you're using the regen or bubble shield where you're instantly trying to smash it out for something.
Yeah. Most of those, like grav lift and deployable cover, you're probably going to have a little bit of time to activate it. And it's not that much time to hit one direction on the D-pad. It's really not terrible.
Right. But yeah,
they're running out of buttons.
Yeah, we're going to run out of buttons soon with all the features they'll keep putting in.
I mean, equipment would definitely make the game type interesting, and I would seem that it would kind of push or accelerate the speed of the engagements, because both teams are going to want to push for that power up. But I just don't know how much other than that it would really add to the gameplay. Because, I mean, once that power-up's consumed, one team is going to have a distinct advantage, and the whole idea, at least the idea I got from the beta in general, was they're trying to push, they're trying to focus on, the fair start and, the map control. I guess it plays into that too, but it just doesn't seem like it's something that Breakout was intended for. Breakout was intended to be, basically just a 4v4,
with the people with starts.
With the fair starts, and the team with the best tactics wins.
But if you think about it, them adding that one, it prevents the stalemates that are really prevalent in Breakout, and it promotes like that map movement, and it requires better strategies for that map movement to get it. But also, you got to think, once a team does get it, it could pretty much mean game or that round for them, and that's one thing that they have to consider when they put it on there. It can't be too good for it to be an automatic win, but it's got to be good enough to make it worth the push.
Right.
And it all comes down to the tuning.
There's another proponent that's really just based off of the map design too, depending on how the map's going to be structured, how the flow of player movement is going to be, would really dictate on what kind of equipment and abilities or power-ups you would want to be able to be used in that kind of situation. I like all the ideas. I'm just not sure how it's going to fit in with the sandbox, because if it's something that they're going to introduce into Breakout, they're likely going to look at ways to introduce it into the rest of Halo. And I just don't know if you want those three different kind of systems where you already have your Spartan abilities, then you would have equipment or power-ups on top of that as well. So having all those systems in there, I'm not sure how that impacts the sandbox of Halo, because you already have quite a bit of utility out of your Spartan abilities. And you have the ground pound, you have the solar charge, you have the hover, and all that stuff. But I do like the idea of the power-ups after being able to control a very volatile middle point. Just not sure about what 343's stance would be on equipment use.
The equipment is the harder part for me, because it was in Halo 3 and then kind of scrapped. It wasn't in Reach. I mean, you had armor abilities that you could pick up, but ultimately they were equipment was there for one game. They didn't like it probably, and so they scrapped it. And we know, I'm pretty sure Quinn tweeted out that they were for sure having power-ups still in Halo 5. So it's going to be in the sandbox. So that aspect is safe, and I wouldn't mind them testing it out for Breakout, but I wouldn't want them to actually have to make these equipment elements pieces just for Breakout use. I'd only want it to be in if it was part of the natural sandbox that they were going to use anyways.
Yeah, I agree. So if no one else has anything to say about Breakout, we can go ahead and start to get wrapped up and talk about Strongholds.
Okay.
Anyone have any last minute comments on the Breakout or either of the maps?
Nope.
No, I'm good.
That was everything on my list.
Sweet. Well, I'm sure you got a big write-up on it too, since that was the big thing for you there. You said you had, what, a 10-page write-up on Breakout?
I have, right now, I'm at 10 pages with abilities and almost all weapons. I still have, actually, probably half weapons. Yeah, I didn't get much done this week. I've been pretty busy.
It's a lot to write about. I didn't think it would be this much, to be honest. But there's a lot to write about. I mean, we've done 4 shows, all ranging from 90 minutes to 2 hours on it already. So that just goes to show how much there is to talk about. But all good discussions so far from the community feedback with Halo 5 and everything else that's going on too. So, but Strongholds, this was an interesting game type. I actually kind of liked the variation on this one. It was very territory-esque, taking game types from the Halo franchise, and I liked the capture times and how you had to have at least 2. What was it? Yeah, at least
You had
2.
to have at least 2 points to score.
To start scoring, and you scored for just how many you had over the other team. That was a very interesting idea.
I love the communication that it required to really control that game type.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, to lock down a map and have control of the 2 territories and hold control of the 2 objectives.
Yeah.
It was not easy with people that didn't know how to communicate well.
Yep.
Especially
I
on
couldn't
Regret.
play.
Oh, Regret was something else, man.
I actually never played it on Regret.
On Regret, it was just madness. If you didn't have, if one person was out of the loop, it was a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
When you had all 4 in the loop, you couldn't be stopped though.
Yep.
Trying to think, it was Empire and Regret. Those were the only 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I really liked it on Empire. I didn't really care for it on Regret.
Yeah.
But Regret was the game that I only had 2 other people with me, where Empire I had a full squad, and we demolished that team.
Yeah, Empire was nice. I liked how there was actually height advantage to clear out a base. If someone was like puppy guarding, or if you wanted to defend it, you could get on the outside, or I guess the inner part where there's the lip, and shoot down into the base. But on Regret, you didn't have that, so you had to push on even level the entire time against someone who's trying to either take your objective or just capture a new one.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like that. To be honest, I felt like Empire was a lot better with the verticality.
I just had a hard time with Regret overall.
There are a lot of headaches with that map, but for me, it was actually, I think, my better Strongholds map, to be honest. There were lots of fights for the top hill, obviously, and then being able to run around to those side bases and get those. It was not as hard as or having to try to get some of the ones on Empire, at least for the times I played. But I think as far as just the game type itself, I like how the scoring system was one team scoring and not both, because I know for like at least I think. Well, the only thing that can come to mind right now is Titanfall, where you're doing a hardpoint domination. Yeah, both teams scoring, and I think in other first-person shooters, when you have that kind of game type, it's both teams are scoring based off of what control points they have. So Battlefield, I think, is another one where you're winning or losing tickets based off of how many points you have. So I liked what they did in Halo 5 with Strongholds, where it's just one team scoring at once.
I feel like that didn't really make that big of a difference to me, though, because they just lowered the score gap, the score to win, pretty much, from those other game types that you mentioned. Like, if I only have to capture, like, Call of Duty domination, you just hold the 2 and you win no matter what. It doesn't matter. The losing team's score is pretty much irrelevant, whether they're going up or not. If I'm going up twice as fast for having the 2 and they're going up 1, it's moving at the same pace pretty much as I'm getting 1 and they're getting 0. You know, it's plus, either way, the differential is 1 point.
I think it plays a lot more of a role in the in-game situation where you're both teams are very close to winning score, but you have this kind of back and forth over who has it. And looking at other ways of implementing it, if you have one team that maybe controls one team, but someone else or another team takes over a second hill, you could have the losing team trying to catch up from scoring, but the winning team is still earning points. Whereas in Strongholds, you basically stop the winning team from scoring any points. So if you get up to
it makes it more interesting for comebacks. I get that.
Right.
So I think that's the best argument I've heard.
I think that's where the stopping point. It's more for the end game, for that last minute holdout, where if you can convert over, you can actually mount a comeback instead of a slowly deprecating loss.
Yeah, that's like I said, that's the best argument I've heard for that scoring system, because I did make a comeback where I was about to just set the controller down and walk away, which is rare for me. But
except the time you fell over in your chair.
Yeah, but we ended up getting it together, me and some of my viewers, and against a better than average team. And we managed to get on the same page. We locked it down, and they were at like 80 and we were at 50, and we stopped them and we made the comeback, and it was really cool. So I could see the scoring system staying the way it is.
Yeah, I didn't mind the scoring system at all, personally. I thought it worked really well.
So one of the things I've been trying to think of for the last minute and haven't really been able to think of is looking at Strongholds as kind of an alternative to territories in a way. Do you think that 343 is looking at other ways to possibly change up some of the classic Halo game types like Capture the Flag or Oddball or Assault and making a new twist off of those as well? And if so, what do you think, what kind of twists would they throw into something like that?
I don't know.
I don't know. Like with Capture the Flag, I felt like the twist they threw in was the flag carrier had a pistol, and I personally didn't care for that at all. I'd much rather prefer to have the juggling aspect than a pistol. But I don't know what they could really, maybe for Assault, you could, if you were the bomb carrier, you could detonate the bomb if
that'd be interesting.
Just reset it.
Your push was gonna fail, so it kills you, but it kills anybody that's around you,
and it resets
the bomb. Yeah, I don't know. Like,
this is a dead push. I'm out.
Yeah. This sucks.
Instant suicide button. I'm taking you with me, suckers.
I don't know, and maybe the penalty for doing that is you have a suicide penalty in your spawn. I don't know. That'd be, so you're down a man for an extra 10 seconds rather than 5 or 15 seconds if it's a 10-second respawn, like most objective game types have.
Yeah, instead of dropping the bomb and letting your team kind of sweep in behind you, you're taking the sacrifice of playing down a man on your team while trying to take out the rest of the team and having them reset. I could kind of see that.
I don't know.
It'd be an interesting idea to
hard
play
to
with.
really. Those are such classic game types. It's really hard to come up with that monkey wrench to throw into it.
Yeah, assault is pretty much extraction. If you guys didn't notice, or I guess extraction is pretty much assault, like a neutral assault. You've got that neutral thing. You arm it, and then you defend it for a little. It is different where you don't have to grab a neutral bomb and move it towards the enemy base. But once you've played the objective, that's how that play style is pretty much how you would do assault once it's armed. And then, of course, the fact that you could convert it was a really good twist to that, even more so. And I felt like extraction was a really good change of pace, a good objective game type. I think a lot of people would agree with me on that, and that's why I was in competitive play for Halo 4. I'd like to see that in Halo 5 again.
I agree. I really enjoyed the extraction game type.
I never really connected with extraction, but I never really spent much time trying to make that connection.
I saw more of a territories one, actually.
Yeah, that's how I always viewed it, as, oh, this is a new form of territories. I guess I didn't
consider it assault. Yeah.
I as soon as I saw it, I thought assault.
That's a different way of thinking about it. I just never thought about. But I mean, it's hard to touch classic game types like Slayer and CTF. But I'm thinking some of these other Halo crafted ones like Oddball. I mean, Oddball is kind of Halo centric.
I felt like once they added the throw the ball, that was enough of a wrench to throw in, or a change to that game type.
That was a really big change that a lot of people don't agree with. I like throwing for Griffball, but I don't think it was a good idea for
Oddball,
an actual Oddball game type.
It's kind of a bailout measure.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of agree with that too, because one of the things with Oddball was defending your ball carrier.
Yeah, and if your entire team would die in Halo 4, all you have to do is wait till you see your first teammate respawn,
and throw it,
and just chuck it across the map to him off his respawn.
Or throw it into a reset point, which was very easily done.
Yeah, and that was just too crazy. For Oddball, you needed to just keep it the way it was. Only play ball if you're off the map.
I think the big thing is Halo. I feel like Halo players like change, but they don't want the type of change where you're in a warm water and then you're getting dropped into ice water. And that's what I feel like that a lot of the changes they did to some of the classic game types like CTF and Oddball were for a lot of Halo fans.
Yeah, they were too big of changes. I didn't mind the flagnum, but I disliked that you couldn't drop it. Like I'd be all right with having the flag guy have a pistol, but I don't like that he couldn't drop it and do his juggle.
Mm-hmm. I think you ought to be able to throw the flag like a javelin.
Someone mentioned that.
That'd be sweet.
Oh, someone said that in the sprint. They said you could just charge it up and just throw it. That was an idea
disintegrate
that was passed around.
like the Promethean weapons do to you.
Yeah,
that'd be insane.
A ton of fun to see javelins spear them.
You just impale someone in the head, and you go up to them and you yank it out of their helmet or something. That would be interesting.
That'd be so cool.
But yeah, they definitely said it in an episode of the Sprint. If you guys go back and watch it, you'll see someone recommends it to Quinn, and he just he laughs it off, but it was just a funny but still pretty cool idea.
I mean, that's what they do with the Oddball. They throw the you're charging them. They throw you the Oddball so you can't fire your weapon, and then kill you, and then pick the Oddball up and keep on going.
Yeah, that was another thing I disliked was auto pickup.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you can't drop it, like the flag. You could not drop the flag, but you auto picked it up. You had no say in the matter.
Yeah.
And
in Halo 1, you had the option to drop it even with the auto pickup, but I just don't like the auto pickup period, because if you were trying to make a push on a flag and a guy spawns, you need to take that guy out. Well, if you pick up the flag, you're at a severe disadvantage before you even get an opportunity to move that flag.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I definitely never did like the auto pickup thing.
I see its purpose in customs, but in general multiplayer and matchmaking, it just doesn't. I don't feel that it flows very well.
There's only one reason I like auto pickup, and it's because like competitive play online, sometimes you are walking over the flag and you hold B and you're like, dude, I just held pick up the flag, and it didn't pick up because you have to hold it. It picks it up instantly. So it's not I held it down, I can't believe that the game didn't let me pick it up. It's you just weren't there.
Right.
You know, it completely negates all that frustration, and I really liked that.
And then in Big
in
Team,
Halo 3,
it's like someone parks a vehicle over the flag.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Halo 3 what?
I was going to say, Halo 3, you hold it down. The connections weren't always the best in Halo 3. You hold the pick up, and sometimes you fall over as you're on it, and you're just like, man, I could have kept that flag alive. In Halo 4, you either were or you weren't on the flag.
Well, the big problem I had with it is I'd be battling, I'd be at the enemy base battling, a guy that just spawned, so I could clear him before I'd pick up the flag, and I'd accidentally walk across the flag.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's, like, there's more negatives than positives to auto pickup.
I mean, even if I could just immediately drop it, I've still lost that, half a second.
Yeah, the first shot is important and crucial.
But yeah, I think take the throw away from the bomb and give it to the flag. That's a good change.
Interesting. So back to Strongholds, so we can kind of wrap this up. I know the map selection wasn't. I don't think it was particularly great to showcase the game type. I think the game type was fun, and I like seeing the new direction for it, but it just didn't seem like with the beta maps that we had that really showed its true potential. I saw a lot of good things from it, but I think there's a lot more to see coming from Strongholds that we could possibly get in better designed maps. I don't know, what do you guys think?
So thinking of past Halos, what map do you imagine would be like a good style, I guess, for Strongholds?
Ghost Town kind of comes to mind.
See, I think like Lockdown, or Lockdown. I think Midship, so Truth.
I'm not sure about Midship in that case.
Yeah, I don't know how I'd feel about Midship, but I could see it happening on Lockdown, because I mean, Halo 2 territories, I always remember Lockout being one of the ones. You got BR3 and Top Lift.
I loved that map.
Yeah,
and Shotgun
Room. It was a lot of fun.
Shotgun Room was a nightmare because it would just be a nade and sword fest. Gosh, what other maps would you do that on? Snowbound would be maybe a possibility.
Ew.
Well, I'm just thinking from like
Snowbound was terrible, but Boundless without like the shield doors, that was all right.
I'm just thinking like the segregation of the bases, and then you have that base bottom mid. Something.
Yeah, it's gotta be like that.
It's gotta be like distinctive areas.
Yeah, they've got to be separated. Like in Empire, you had the one in the turbine, and you had the two in the bases. On Regret, you had the one up on top middle that was isolated from the two that were also isolated
in the bases,
their own individual bases.
Well, one of the reasons.
So you got to think about anyway that could separate all three of them.
Well, that was kind of one of the things why I said Ghost Town, because you have that. If you think about territories for Ghost Town, you can actually find three pretty distinct territories to use as the strongholds. You have the water plant, then you have the middle area, and then you have the flag spawn and the base. It could be your three distinct areas. I really like Ghost Town if you haven't figured that out yet.
Ghost Town was, I think, a great map in the wrong game.
It's an interesting way to think about it.
I know.
I didn't have a big problem with it. It wasn't It wasn't my favorite map, but it wasn't like my least favorite map. Like I had good times on it, I had bad times on it, and I'll take that over maps that I just had bad times on.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Strongholds is going to be an interesting game type for Halo 5, and I'm looking forward to seeing what other maps we get it on and how it's going to really play to some other environments that we'll get in Halo 5. I really enjoyed Strongholds. I'm excited to see what they do with it.
Me as well.
Any last comments on that?
None that I can think of.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. We reached over the 2-hour mark, so I know some people need to head on out for the evening, and we have a game night to start tonight since we're actually recording on Friday. But I want to give a huge thanks to Uni for coming on the show again and putting up with us for 2 hours.
Thanks for having me.
I'm assuming you're still over perusing Reddit or Halo Reddit every now and then, and
yeah, I still I make videos only once a week now. I had to cut back, and I'll still moderate the Halo subreddit though. I still do that, keep things clean.
There you go.
Somewhat positive.
It's done. I've heard it's done actually pretty well in terms of just kind of the vibe.
It's been getting a lot better. It's been getting a lot better.
I actually started getting back into it today, so I went in and rated some posts and whatnot.
Nice.
That's all good stuff. So yeah, you can find him at your YouTube's Unyshek, right?
Yeah, everything is Unyshek. Every single one.
Unique.
Exactly.
Unique. Get it?
Exactly.
Awesome. So yeah, definitely check him out. Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. I'm guessing you have a Facebook page or something. So do all that. Check him out. He's really cool. If you have a chance to check out his streams, they're really good whenever he does his streams. I know for the Halo 5 beta, his streams were at least one of the ones I would regularly check out. So if you have the chance, definitely check out his stream, twitch.tv/Unyshek, and that's UNYSHEK if you need the spelling
Correct.
On that. Again, huge thanks for coming on by, and we hope to see you on sometime in the future. Maybe when we get more news on Halo 5, or are you going to be going to PAX or RTX?
I do not think I'm going to PAX, and I don't know about RTX.
No PAX Prime?
I might do PAX Prime. I don't know for sure, though. I know for sure not PAX East.
I was talking PAX Prime.
Okay, I might try and get back to PAX Prime again, but I'm thinking E3 might be the only thing I go to.
Okay.
If I go to one, it'll probably be E3.
So we'll probably see you then on the podcast as well.
All right.
At least I'm planning to get out to E3. It's just a matter of whether or not to get the badge this year, which I'm guessing I will. But you can check us out on our website, podtacular.com, and then we're on our social media, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, all that stuff. We released the second episode of Achieving Halo, which is for the Pillar of Autumn. There's 6 achievements on that one you can get. So I recommend you guys go over, check out our YouTube channel. You can do that by going to podtacular.com/YouTube. Check out the video. It's a good way to see how you can get a bunch of achievements in just doing one run through of campaign missions. So it's an interesting way of attacking the campaigns, and I'm hoping that you guys get some interesting use out of it if you're still looking for some of those achievements. We have our game nights on Fridays, and since we're recording this on Friday, the game night is occurring right after this podcast. So if you're listening live, make sure you head on over to the Master Chief Collection, and hopefully it works because we're still waiting for the patch of all patches to happen. But
fingers crossed.
Exactly. The game nights. Hey now. The game nights are now on Friday nights, normally at 8:30. So just because of this week, we bumped it back to after the podcast, but we're sticking with the 8:30 time frame, doing it on Fridays because we think that's going to be a lot better for other people to get on board with the action. So definitely check that out. Make sure you check out our podcast network, thepodcast.com, which has other gaming podcasts like Guardian Radio and Critscast. They're really good podcasts to listen to if you're looking for just other gaming podcasts to get into, or just some other good quality talking personalities. They're really good to listen to. So head on over there and check them out. And make sure you jump on over to our forums. I've been trying to do a better job at posting topics for you guys to actually go in and have some good discussions about. So if you guys can drop over there every once in a while, we would appreciate it. We got some Halo 5 threads going, some Master Chief Collection threads going. We'll probably have some book threads going as we are probably going to pick up a lot on the lore episodes once we're done with our Halo 5 coverage. So definitely head on over there and check that out as well. And that's going to do it for us tonight. Again, Unyshek, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And as a special tribute, rest in peace, Leonard Nimoy.